The film begins by showing the Earth's chaos after AI robots attack. The police have already bagged one name as the mastermind behind the chaos. Harlan, the first terrorist AI, developed by a scientist at a lab called SEP Robotic. Initially, Harlan was created to make life easier for humans on Earth. However, like a brother, the robot they loved defected and became the mastermind of Earth's destruction. The military responded to the attack by mobilizing all its troops worldwide to fight Harlan. The situation became increasingly difficult since Harlan could hack into all the AI robots on Earth. Eventually, Harlan began to struggle against the military and fled the Earth, but he promising to return one day. 28 years later, a military force called ICN, International Coalition of Nations, was conducting a sweep in a place to hunt down a terrorist AI robot that Harlan allegedly sent as a spy. They use motion sensors that robots cannot perfectly imitate. It turns out that many military forces have become victims of the AI robot named Casca. The Casca is AI robot bulletproof and more muscular than humans. However, Casca finally fell after being hit by a set travel prepared to short out the robot. The next day, a woman named Atlas woke up. Atlas is a military analyst who is a genius and the daughter of the founding scientist of SEP Robotics. Despite being surrounded by AI technology, Atlas does not fully trust artificial intelligence because she is feeling more intelligent than them. This was proven when she beat the AI in a chess game while watching television. Atlas is known to be rigid, self-centered, and unwilling to accept advice from others, as she feels she knows best. In fact, as a human being, mistakes are common, considering that no human being is perfect. In the middle of the game, Atlas was distracted when she saw a TV news report about the capture of a terrorist AI robot, Casca. 30 years ago, Casca was known as the right-hand man of Harlan, the leader of the AI robot rebellion. Knowing this, Atlas immediately went to the ICN office to interrogate Casca. Once there, Atlas opened a box containing Casca's head and began interrogating him differently, more like a mobile phone technician. Since it was impossible to hack him by force, Atlas reset the smart devices in Casca's brain using magnets while mapping the brain's workings by asking simple questions. Atlas managed to locate the planet where Harlan was hiding. She used tactics to lure Casca into focusing, and Casca's system automatically rechecked the memory file of Harlan's location, which was picked up by Atlas's system. Atlas managed to fend off Casca's covered attack using a holographic shield before he finally destroyed the AI robot. After obtaining the location of Harlan's hideout, Atlas met with the ICN general to discuss the matter. Atlas begged to join the mission as she had dedicated her life to finding Harlan. There was an argument when the General Booth intended to capture Harlan alive to research and find out how an AI could lead a rebellion like that. While Atlas considered it too naive, Harlan's abilities as an AI could not be underestimated. Atlas argued that if they didn't finish Harlan off, they wouldn't survive. It turned out that this statement offended a colonel assigned to the mission. This person is named Colonel Elias. He showed an advanced AI robot owned by the military that they would use in this mission. The robot is named ARS, which works directly with the pilot's brain using a device called Neuralink or brain transmitter. According to Colonel Elias, the AI system on the ARS is an upgrade of Harlan's intelligence system, and he is confident that it will complete the mission. It is also shown here how humans have created a holographic shield that protects the Earth from any attack from outer space, with a rigorous traffic system and a warp system that allows them to travel in space almost at the speed of light. To cut a long story short, when they were almost at the planet where Harlan was, Atlas instructed the ARS pilots not to use any digital devices to avoid being hacked. However, she was laughed at for being old-fashioned. Atlas also asked the troops always to be prepared for any eventuality they had never imagined, because she knew Harlan's cunning nature. However, Colonel Elias found these remarks strange, feeling that Atlas shouldn't have said those words before the troops were about to go on duty, as it would have undermined their confidence. Sure enough, as the troops were preparing to use their ARS, they were surprised by a surprise attack from hundreds of Harlan's destruction drones. The attack almost caused Atlas to die in space if Colonel Elias hadn't quickly loaded him into one of the ARS and forced him to jump. It didn't stop there. In addition to being unprepared for the attack, the free-falling troops were still being attacked mid-air. The AI drones left little room for the military to fight back. Meanwhile, Atlas, who did not know how to use the ARS robot at all, fortunately got help from one of the troops who told her to control the robot using Neuralink so that she could land safely. However, for some reason, she didn't want to do it until the girl finally fell and landed on the snow. At this moment, Atlas was stranded alone. She tried to contact the headquarters for help, but it was useless. During the confusion, she was forced to activate the system on the ARS and found the nearest emergency outpost 90 kilometers away. They could have easily flown there quickly, but to avoid the drones of the AI forces, and even though the sensors on the ARS robot were so complicated that it was difficult for Atlas, she was adamant that she would not use Neuralink. So they were forced to walk even though their batteries were running low. While walking to the emergency port, Atlas tried to learn one by one the weapons on the ARS, ranging from rocket guns and mines to other weapons. In addition, the system inside the ARS also introduces itself as Smith and tells its last ability, which is an ion bomb, just in case the opponent presses them. After arriving at the landing point, Atlas saw all the ICN troops who had died. She told Smith to collect their ID tags. Only then did she realize she needed one ID, Colonel Elias. This convinced Atlas that he was still alive. At the same time, Smith captured the movements of someone he knew from the radar sensors, and it turned out that the person was not Colonel Elias, but a clone of Casca with many AI troops. This forced Atlas to use PRB combat mode, which made Atlas panic because, as an analyst, she didn't know the basics of fighting. She was forced to flee into the atmospheric storm, but didn't stop there, fearing that the AI troops were still in pursuit. Atlas reflexively asked Smith to activate the ion bomb, even though Smith had forbidden her because it violated security protocols. At this point, she did not expect the power of the ion bomb to flatten the entire place and all AI troops except Casca, who survived. Casca was created stronger than other AI robots. Suddenly, at the same time, the ground in that place experienced a landslide due to the effects of the atomic bomb explosion, which caused the ground around them to collapse. Unfortunately, the incident broke Atlas' leg. Smith, the most advanced AI robot at the time and equipped with modern medical equipment exported from Salome, tried to treat her immediately with first aid. In this challenging situation, Smith again asked Atlas to use Neuralink because they could only connect and work together to get out of the place. It was also the only way they could survive. Feeling that there was no other option and not wanting them to be buried in that place, for the first time, Atlas obeyed Smith's command to transmit her brain bidirectionally. Meanwhile, up above, Casca was still in one piece, trying to rise from the rubble. Casca then contacted Harlan to report that he had lost Atlas. At the same time, it turns out that Colonel Elias is alive and now being held by Harlan. The robot extracts all the crucial information from Colonel Elias about Earth and human life today. Back to Atlas and Smith, who are still trapped underground. They had a problem when Smith failed to connect his system with Atlas. Keep in mind, because ARS robot technology is very advanced, to activate all of that, he must connect with his pilot through Neuralink. This stage will connect Atlas' mind's contents, including her past with Harlan. Despite being only 40% connected, Smith informed that they were currently buried about 150 meters underground, and to reach the surface, they would have to use an ejection system that would drain most of their batteries. This is where the Neuralink comes in, where, after scanning the surroundings, Atlas sees an underground cave near them and decides to head there. Aside from saving more battery, they would also avoid being watched by the AI troops. Finally, they were able to get out of the underground. By this point, they were already 60% connected, allowing Atlas to access all the weapons efficiently. However, even then, they didn't realize that as soon as they exited the cave, their presence was immediately noticed by the AI troop surveillance drones. Fortunately, Atlas had anticipated this by using nearby motion detection sensors and laying several mines. When Casca approached, he could immediately activate the mines to stop the mighty robot. After finishing off Casca for the second time, as he could not hack into Casca, he learned that Casca was using a short-range transmission device. This meant that Harlan's base location should be not far away. Realizing this, Atlas asked Smith to quickly scan the surrounding area and estimate the possible location of Harlan's base. They intended to go there immediately after getting the info from Smith. However, despite estimating the location of Harlan's base, the problem was that their batteries wouldn't be enough. When Atlas insisted on heading there anyway, Smith used his ability to manipulate Atlas' motor nervous system to force Atlas' movements and prevent him from going there, as it would be perilous and against the robot's main program, which should put the pilot's safety first. The incident triggered Atlas' memory of her mother being killed by Harlan in the same way. Smith also saw that, so they immediately let her go and apologized. Then Atlas explained that they had to go to Harlan's base to send the coordinates to launch a remote attack. If they didn't do that, then the opportunity to finish off Harlan would be lost, and all the soldiers who had died would be wasted. Long story short, the two of them finally arrived at Harlan's hideout and immediately implanted a signal transmitter so that the center could get accurate coordinates. However, when they were about to leave, Atlas realized that Harlan was up to something. Upon further investigation, she saw the AI robots loading all the nuclear warheads carried by humans to be sent back to Earth. Their presence was finally detected, and what Atlas had feared from the beginning finally happened. Smith's AI system was hacked, so they were caught.
Welcome to the pie or...
After decades of searching, this was the turning point. Atlas finally met Harlan. As it turns out, from the very beginning, Harlan planned to capture Casca and leak the base's location. The humans proudly assumed that they had found him. In essence, he intends to destroy most of the current human population on Earth, and in doing so, using the remnants, Harlan will guide a new generation of humans to live as they should, which is to preserve nature. Here, Harlan recognizes that the shields created by humans are indeed very accurate and would be impenetrable if only relying on the power of external attacks. Therefore, he deliberately lured Atlas and the AORS troops to come to him because he knew that Atlas would accompany the troops on this mission. Now, with Atlas and Colonel Elias captured and their mothership taken over by Harlan, Harlan had the access codes and everything he needed to bypass the protective shield. And it was only a matter of time before he could launch the carrier back to Earth. However, just when Atlas thought there was no more hope, Colonel Elias, who had been lying helplessly next to her, turned out to be alive. He gave his transmitter to Atlas when he realized that Atlas AORS or robot had also been brought to that place. He said that the AORS was not off, even though the system was automatically put into sleep mode unless the robot's reactor was destroyed. So, there was still a chance for Atlas to switch Smith on and stop Harlan. After several attempts, the Smith finally managed to reactivate. However, to move it remotely, they had to be perfectly synchronized. But there was still something standing in Atlas' way. There was still something that she had always avoided. Atlas behaved like that because of the trauma she experienced. Atlas doesn't want what happened in the past to happen again. So, we are told that it was Atlas who made Harlan able to change his program after being allowed to do a two-way data exchange between him and his users. At that time, Atlas was still a child and only wanted to be smart like Harlan to get the same attention that her mother gave to him. However, she didn't realize that her actions would bring great trouble to humanity in the future. From then on, Atlas lived in guilt. Atlas worried that all the AI would behave cruelly like Harlan. After hearing that story, Smith was an AI, but the robot tried to calm Atlas down by saying that the girl didn't need to bear all that burden alone, because there will always be lessons to be learned from past events. It's just how we react to them for a better future. Finally, Atlas came to her senses and allowed Smith to synchronize fully. When it reached 100%, Smith was instantly active, leaving Atlas in awe as her consciousness merged with the AI. Atlas and Smith were forced to improvise by utilizing broken items around them, because Harlan had stripped all the weapons from Smith's body. However, unexpectedly, this made Smith more functional with 2 additional arms and some sharp weapons of their own making. Despite being alone, Atlas was already in 100% sync with Smith, so she defeated dozens of Harlan's AI troops without them realizing that Atlas was just baiting them. Meanwhile, the badly injured Colonel Elias planned to blow up the place to clear the way for Atlas and Smith so they could rush out and stop Harlan before the plane took off. Even though they make it out, Atlas and Smith must try to avoid the AI robots and artillery firing at them. Atlas could even see the scenario by calculating the possibility of doing maximum damage with just one highly accurate shot. The domino effect of the shot could result in destruction. Meanwhile, the carrier aircraft carrying the warheads had begun to take off, so they had to find a way to stop the plane while avoiding Harlan's continued attacks quickly. Initially, Smith was still determining whether he could hack into the aircraft's 5 layers of defense systems to disable the warheads. However, Atlas was desperate enough to fire a missile at the plane. Fortunately, this move brought the aircraft down just as Smith managed to hack the warheads inside. Now, the two had to go head-to-head with Harlan, who wouldn't let them get away with it after his plan failed. Utilizing speed and a sword that could easily cut through steel, Harlan attacked them. Now they had to try to deal with Harlan's devastating attacks. Although they had outpaced Harlan's attacks were still brutal for Smith and Atlas to anticipate. They suffered pretty fatal damage. They couldn't overcome Harlan's attacks, even using Atlas' ability to read enemy movement patterns. Harlan targeted Atlas, and also the reactor or battery used by Smith, so Atlas was also injured to the point of unconsciousness. This is where Smith was left alone. The robot must try desperately to protect Atlas while continuing to receive fatal attacks from Harlan. Because Smith's power had started to run out, Smith couldn't do much but buy time to protect the pilot inside. Fortunately, because he was too focused on targeting Smith's reactor, Harlan didn't realize Atlas had woken up. Just as Smith began to lose power, Atlas attacked Harlan from behind and dealt so much damage that Harlan could no longer fight back. After successfully eliminating Harlan, Atlas returned to Smith and invited him to leave the place immediately. However, since they were both already in critical condition, they had to find a way to save themselves. Currently, the power in Smith's battery is only 1% left, and Atlas' oxygen is also running out. Finally, Smith gave up his remaining energy to be converted into oxygen to save Atlas. This is where Atlas felt a bond with Smith and a sense of loss when she had to part with Smith, even though she was previously skeptical of AI. Despite knowing that the AI system of the arts was designed to protect their pilots, Atlas did not expect the robot to sacrifice himself. Inevitably, this moved Atlas. Long story short, Atlas returned to Earth and was visited by the ACN General. He wanted to thank you for Atlas because Atlas' services, humanity had survived. The General thanked the soldiers' families because Atlas was willing to collect their identification. Also, Atlas finally decided to join the army in ICM and modified her robot with the exact model of the arts robot she used against Harlan, and she used Smith as the robot's AI system.